Hey, what's going on, dudes? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to do 10 misconceptions about the separation of church and state in the United States. This is on www.listverse.com. This is written by Jonathan H. Cantor and fact-checked by Jamie O'Frater, the founder of Listverse, by the way. All right, one of the most contentious issues in a modern democracy like the United States, I'm not even going to get into that, is the wall of separation between the church and the state. In the U.S., this phrase is used incorrectly by many as they either assert their religious beliefs on the public or fear that those same beliefs are being threatened by the government. Like any judicial precedents, it is vastly misunderstood. Number 10, it's in the Constitution. Separation between church and state is not in the U.S. Constitution. The First Amendment Establishment Clause reads, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. The first mention of the phrase came in a letter from Thomas Jefferson to the Danbury Baptist Association in Connecticut in January 1802. Their legislators shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state. Though separation of church and state is not in the Constitution, it has become jurisprudence due to the Supreme Court decision of Reynolds v. United States in 1879, where the court wrote that Jefferson's words may be accepted almost as an authoritative declaration of the scope and effect of the amendment. Number 9, it was enacted to protect the state from religious coercion. Many people believe that the wall was implemented to protect the state from religious influence. The wall is indeed meant to do that, but it's also meant to protect religions from state influence. In this sense, the use of the word wall established a figurative barrier between the two sides so that neither can influence the other. This has allowed the people of the United States to freely practice whichever religion they choose, with the legal ability to challenge the state when the religious practices are threatened. This first arose in Everson v. Board of Education in 1947 when the Supreme Court found that public funds could not pay for transportation to both public and private, in this case Catholic schools. The First Amendment has erected a wall between church and state. That wall must be kept high and impenetrable. We could not approve the slightest breach. Number 8, religious leaders do not support separation of church and state. Some religious leaders advocate dismantling the wall and turning the U.S. into a theocracy, but they're only a vocal minority. The vast majority of religious leaders are steadfastly opposed to this and want no political influence in their affairs at all. The origin of the wall comes from religious leaders and theologians such as Roger Williams. Enlightenment philosophies pushed the mostly deist founding fathers to further this approach to the interaction between church and state. It was a revolutionary idea in the 18th century, but has since become the norm in almost every Western society. The Catholic Church historically had political influence throughout Europe, but has adapted to embrace the wall of separation in the modern era. Number 7, it originated in the First Amendment. It is true that the Establishment Clause in Jefferson's letter established the separation of church and state in U.S. politics, but the idea did not originate there. The first person to bring up what would eventually be described as a wall was Roger Williams, a 17th century British theologian. Williams wrote, when they, the church, have opened a gap in the hedge or wall of separation between the garden of the church and the wilderness of the world, God hath ever broke down the wall itself, removed the candlestick, and made his garden a wilderness as at this day. It was this statement that likely helped guide Jefferson in his development of the wall of separation between church and state. Williams' desire for religious liberty demanded that a wall exist between the garden, church, and the state, the wilderness of the world. Number 6, the wall isn't necessary since the U.S. is a Christian nation. According to a Pew Research poll, 71% of Americans identify as Christian. 71% of Americans identify as Christian. In many ways, the misconception that the United States is a Christian nation stems from people's belief that in a democracy, majority rules. We're not a democracy, but anywho. That is only true in some aspects. The true nature of a democracy is to protect the minority from the tyranny of the majority. The United States was founded and remains a secular nation. This is essentially guaranteed by the Establishment Clause, which protects the religious freedoms of its citizens while also protecting the citizens from religious influence. Because the Constitution and its amendments are the laws upon which the government is based, and are entirely secular. So too is the nation upon which it was founded. 5. It It applied to the entire nation from the beginning. Until the decision of Everson versus Board of Education, 1947, the wall did not apply to the states themselves. The finding in Everson relied heavily on the justices' interpretation of the 14th Amendment related to due process. Before this decision, the Establishment Clause applied only to federal legislature. Because of this decision, further cases were brought to the Supreme Court to address prayer in school, blasphemy laws, and other religion-based mandates throughout the states, which the court ultimately deemed unconstitutional. One such case, Edgar versus Vital, in 1962, addressed mandated prayer in public schools. The court found that it was a matter of history that this very practice of establishing governmentally composed prayers for religious services was one of the reasons which caused many of our early colonists to leave England and seek religious freedoms in America. Number 4, the wall of separation has removed God from public schools. The wall has been cited as a reason to ban mandated prayer in public schools since Edgar versus Vital, but it never banned prayer, religion, or God from public schools or the public square. The only limit the Establishment Clause is placed on public prayer is that it cannot be government mandated or funded. This means that a public institution like a school that receives funds from the government cannot institute mandated prayer. People are welcome to pray and practice their religions as they please. It is the government institution itself that is unable to do so, not the people. Public practice is not only allowed, but it is protected. Number 3, nativity scenes on public grounds violate separation. Every Christmas, people get up in arms about a nativity scene being displayed on public grounds. The misconception is that such a religious scene suggests support for one religion over the others and is therefore in violation of the Establishment Clause. This is both true and false. If public funds were used to create and maintain the scene and no others from different faiths were allowed, then it would be against the separation of church and state. Courthouses are aware of the laws of the land. It is not a violation of the wall to allow for any and all displays. Because of this, satanic, flying spaghetti monster, and similar religions or irreligions displays have been popping up every year on courthouse lawns. Simply put, no public funds and complete inclusion without preferential treatment means that any display can exist on public grounds such as a courthouse. Number 2, under God and in God we trust violates separation of church and state. Every so often, someone comes out against under God in the Pledge of Allegiance or the nation's current motto, in God we trust, as being in violation of the Establishment Clause. More than once, the Supreme Court has refused to hear cases on this and has often deferred to lower courts' decisions, which has left the terms as being constitutional. This is because people are in no way required by law to say these things. A child can sit in class quietly during the pledge or omit the phrase if they choose to. A person can choose to affirm instead of swear when giving testimony in court or taking a position in public office. Unless a law is written mandating these things be said in an official capacity, the very existence of them in the public and government square will remain constitutional and not in violation of the Establishment Clause. And number 1, separation of church and state initiated a war on Christmas. Whether it's the liberal left or the atheist agenda being cited as the cause, people on the political right have claimed that there is a war on Christmas going on in the United States. I haven't. Both sides of this argument seem to believe that the separation of church and state either prohibits and/or allows for the display of discussion of Christmas in public places. As December rolls around, pundits on Fox News tend to accuse the left of prohibiting people from saying Merry Christmas and forcing them to say Happy Holidays instead. Thanks to the First Amendment's protection on religious practices and free speech, you can say Merry Christmas all you want. While it could offend some people, people don't have a right to not be offended. I want to thank you all for watching. Again, this was www.listverse.com. This was written by Jonathan H. Cantor and fact-checked by Jamie Frater. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye!